Joe Biden, as we talked about before, has hit the road, leaving the safe confines of the Oval Office, where staffers can tell him exactly what to say and where to stand and where to sit and what to do, for his first visit to the Middle East as president, stopping off first in Israel. Now, among Biden's fleetingly lucid remarks, he declared to the Jewish people that, quote, "You don't need to be a Jew to be a Zionist." Well, absolutely right. But this may come as a shock to some Democrats who love to refer to Israel as an apartheid state. For more on Biden's trip, including his visit to Saudi Arabia, we're joined by physician and senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum. You know her well, Quanta Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Now, great to be with you, James.
Now, I want to get right into it. I want your reaction to Joe Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia. We've spoken a bit about it earlier on this show. He went from calling it a pariah state during his election campaign to now having a bit of a fist bump with old Mohammed bin Salman. Is this a needed reset or is this dangerous territory? What's your perspective?
I think this is the unequivocal display of a deeply weakened United States being led by a very enfeebled president. Domestically, President Biden's popularity amongst all Americans is the lowest of any president since President Truman in the immediate aftermath of World War II. We have, in contrast, in Saudi Arabia, one of the youngest crown princes in the history of Saudi Arabia, who has over 90% popularity with age 18 to 24-year-olds in the kingdom, and 60% of the kingdom is under 30 years old. So we're looking at a truly tragic figure of the United States trying to find its place in the Middle East. The fact that the President of the United States had to announce in that commercial meeting in Jeddah with members of the Saudi royal family that the United States is not leaving the region to the machinations of China and Russia tells you how much power the United States has lost in the region over the last 2 decades. And President Biden, I think it's very unfortunate. It's not all his fault. He's coming at a tremendously difficult time in American history and foreign policy, but he certainly has not made contributions to that. And this has a background. President Biden isn't seen in the Middle East only as the president of the last 2 years that we've known here, but as a legacy of the Obama doctrine that really empowered Iran.
And that's why I just want to ask you a little bit more on that. I mean, the Obama administration policies towards the Middle East were an absolute disaster. They spread chaos everywhere they went. Syria, Libya, the Arab Spring, which of course turned into an Arab winter. Just tell us a little bit more about the Obama legacy here that Biden is picking up.
Well, remember, the first person to rush over to congratulate Mohammed Morsi when he was seemingly president of Egypt immediately after the Arab Spring was Hillary Clinton. Yep. And he was a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, so offensive to the Egyptian people that they overthrew him almost a year later. The favoring of Iran has done exactly what you're describing, empowered the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, Hezbollah in Palestine, in Palestinian territories, Hamas and the Islamic Jihad, not to mention the failure of the United States to act in Syria, but also the annexation of Iraq as an Iranian proxy, where Iran has its own missile factories and missile launchers pointed at Riyadh and Tel Aviv. This has all been a function of Obama's doctrine. And the first betrayal President Obama did of the Iranian people was when they were, in 2009, attempting a velvet revolution, and it fell on deaf ears in the United States. So this is a long train wreck in development.
Rita.
And the relations with Saudi Arabia are poor, to say the least. They weren't even taking the president's phone calls a few months back. But President needs Saudi Arabia to increase its oil production because the US needs to tap into that. Again, why is he giving this power to Saudi Arabia when he could have domestic production, where the money stays in America and they do not again become beholden to Saudi Arabia, which he has described as a, what did he call it?
Pariah state.
A pariah state.
This is a self-inflicted energy war. Of course, Putin was the aggressor in Ukraine. Of course, there are atrocities being committed there. That is a conflict that is, I'm very fearful of, going to smolder on deeply. But the entire Western alliance deciding to sanction Russian oil just means that Russian oil is now being sold well below market prices to India and other nations that have massive refining capacity. So if you can believe this, Saudi Arabia is not only the world's largest producer of oil, with second only to Venezuela in terms of 300 billion barrels of proven oil reserve. At the same time, Saudi Arabia is purchasing Russian oil below market price while it's selling its own oil at $95 to $120 a barrel. And this is very much exacerbated by President Biden's obsession with switching the United States to renewable energy overnight without any transition. And people in the United States and in Europe are bearing the brunt of this.
Daisy.
Look, there are midterms coming up, as we all know. I would imagine the opinion of the general public of Saudi Arabia is not great, or at the very least mixed. Do you think the Democrats think they're going to get some political brownie points out of this somehow, this visit to Saudi Arabia?
So, it's very interesting. Earlier this week, I was speaking to friends in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis did not have wall-to-wall media coverage of this visit. And in the United States, there's been very little media coverage of this visit as well. Both populations are disinterested. If you remember, President Trump's visit was not only welcomed by the King of Saudi Arabia to the Saudi capital, but the King of Saudi Arabia at that time invited the other 50-plus Muslim majority leaders to the region to welcome the American president. And the entire world was watching it. There in the Middle East, in the Muslim majority world, and here in the West. And at this time, it has been really relatively unremarkable. And we have to understand in the West, no matter how much there is an appetite to, I think, unfairly demonize Saudi Arabia in many ways. Remember, I lived there. I have a 22-year experience of kingdom watching, long relationships in the kingdom. It's very much demonized and many times unfairly, without giving the whole picture. Women and men have more freedoms in Saudi Arabia than they have ever had before. They have more mobility, more interaction with the international world. And what we're seeing when we saw President Biden with the leader of the Palestinians, Abbas, in his 18th year of a 4-year term, that is the past. That represents the 20th century. When we see Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and the ambition not only of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but the GCC region, the Gulf region, the Gulf +3, that's Iraq and Egypt and Jordan, that is the future. Mohammed bin Salman is 36 years old. He is likely to reign over Saudi Arabia for decades to come, long after this president holds power, and certainly long after the Democrats have lost power here in the White House.
Quanta Ahmed, that's all the time we've got for today, but thank you so much for your fascinating perspective on a dangerous time. Really appreciate it.